Hey guys, Brian from Retread Paintball here again today to just talk about some Tippmann stuff in general, and specifically the SMG60. This is my SMG60. I've had it, a little over a year maybe, and it's nice. It actually was functioning when I got it. Still works. So right now it's aired up, no leaks. Got a little over 1,000 psi left in this tank. With Tippmann's, just in general, you always want to have like a steel tank like this that puts out around 900 psi, or a where'd it go? Ninja SHP regulator, or CO2. Now, we don't normally use CO2 all that much in paintball anymore. You definitely won't see any tournament guys really playing with that. CO2 is just, it's inconsistent, and in certainly more modern guns, electric guns, you don't want liquid CO2 getting into the gun. But a lot of things like temperature affect your output pressure, so you're a lot more consistent over the chronograph, and performance is a lot better. Believe me, I remember the days, in the late 80s when I started playing. CO2 was all we had. And it was a pain in the ass. I mean, we would go out and play in the cold in New Hampshire, or, play in the desert here in California, and where it was really hot, and your CO2, your pressure would be all over the place. And you would, a lot of times be fighting even a chrono to get your gun on the field. So I'm really glad we have high pressure air now, and it's a great thing. So again, this is the SMG60. You may want to run CO2 in it. That's what these guns were designed to run. But I found that if you get, good high pressure tanks and stuff, that they work pretty well. So this gun's aired up. Let's just cycle it. You've seen maybe my other video where I was shooting it with paint. I don't have any paint today, so I can't show it firing paint. And it won't advance a stripper clip unless you have paint in it. So that's something to know. If you load these up, these are the stripper clips. This is your magazine. It's attached with the screw here to the side, and it's got a rolled piece of metal, thin piece of metal that's wound into a little ball, or not in a ball, but it's wound around itself. And as you push this in, it kind of unrolls, and then that provides the spring tension on this gun to advance it as it fires. And this gun fires incredibly fast. It'll spit out these 5 rounds with paint, with one trigger pull without even trying. And there's no way to control it. So that was one reason, or among a couple reasons, why this being an expensive gun at the time, but also that it took 62 caliber paint instead of 68 caliber paint. Harder to get, harder to find. Many fields and stores didn't even carry it. So that's one of the reasons why this kind of, they eventually changed it. The SMG68 will fire 68 caliber paint. So that made things a little bit easier, but this is what they started with. You can still get this paint if you go and look online. There's a couple of places that sell supplies and things for blowguns, and they sell 62, 68, a million different kinds of different sizes of paint. So I've bought 62 caliber paint from there, and that's the orange stuff you saw me shooting this gun previously with. So you would load these up, you insert them, and there's a little index here on the side. You can kind of see this is what happens. It kind of, they'll come out as you fire, and I guess it needs back pressure or something to advance this. So, but anyway, here's what it would look like. You won't see the clip fly out, unfortunately, but here's this gun firing, and this is just, watch how briefly this trigger pull is here. Look at that. I mean, I don't know if you counted, but I mean, that was like 5 right there. So let me hold it down so you can hear it. It's incredibly fast, and for a paintball gun, I mean, it's got recoil. I mean, you can feel it in your hand when this thing's going off. Electric guns, you can fire full auto, and you just hold them, with no problem. This gun's heavy though, so you don't really feel anything. but you know, it's not, and it's definitely not like, you know, like a real steel firearm by any means. But anyway, this is the shorter barreled version. There was a longer barreled version. You could also get different length magazines, and you know, you would load these up in advance. They would kind of come out. They made some clip catchers, which would make it hard to kind of reload in the middle of a game. But it was easier then to pick these up at the end of a game, and not have to walk around the whole field looking for your stripper clips. So I remember seeing these laying on the ground back then. You know, it was a disposable item in a lot of ways, sort of back then. But, you know, God, you're only going to find, you know, nobody makes these anymore, so that I know of. So you're only really going to find ones that are still in existence. So especially now, you're going to want to hang on to them. So it's pretty heavy duty, you know, plastic. I can't crush this with my hand or anything. But that's the SMG60. It's even got the sling on it and everything. So let's talk about the where this was in the evolution here of all things Tippmann. So this was actually banned at a lot of fields that I played at, just because it was full auto. You couldn't really control the you know, the pressure so much on these things. It was very difficult. I mean, you could play around with the spring and maybe putting some things in here like you can on some of the other Tippmanns, but hard to change the velocity on these things, and you would just light people up. I mean, you saw how fast it was. It's as fast or faster than a lot of full auto electric guns that have eyes and everything. So you know, pretty groundbreaking for the day. But what they did, I think, nail was the design, and also that semi-auto was kind of going to be where it was at over pumps of the day. That's where things were going. So from this, they made the SMG60, which essentially was the same gun but 68 caliber. So it was paint that you could more readily find. And I also happen to have a 68 Special here, which is essentially the same gun but semi-auto. Bolts very similar. The body is damn near identical. I'll hold them up here next to each other so you can see. You don't often get to see them like this. So you can see the body's the same except for this cutout and two screws here. So what they did even was, a lot of people really liked this gun when it came out, and what they would do, they offered that if you had a 68 Special, you could send it into Tippmann, they would cut it, and then put this breech and feed neck on it and send it back to you, and you'd have a 68 Special. So another reason why you see fewer and fewer of these, especially of the SMG68s, because of that. You know, and then I think people kind of gave up on them when you couldn't get paint and they were outlawed and things like that. So, but looking at the guns, just a Tippmann thing in general. One thing on these, and most of these are, you may or may not know that, you know, it's pretty much like pot metal, or it is pot metal, and cast, and the ASA is cast into the body, which many of you may have had problems sometimes with some guns where you have an ASA and the tank threads get destroyed, or it destroys the ASA by cross-threading or just under pressure. And these don't have a bleed hole, by the way. So this is the type of gun where it's very hard sometimes to unscrew the tank if it's pressurized. So you know, that's a problem. If you gall the threads on this, I mean, you could try to chase them, you could try to you know, thread it again, but it's got to be the same threads as a tank, or it's just going to be garbage. It's not going to work anymore. So for that reason, I think, and in a lot of ways, they also, yeah, the cool thing with these older Tippmanns was the breech being open on the side. They came with these squeegees, pull-through squeegees. So in the middle of the game, you know, you broke paint, you could easily pull that through, pull that squeegee through and clear it. And back then, I remember breaking a lot of paint. So there was no sizing of paint back then. You got what you got, and either you had field paint or paint that you bought at a store, and again, you got what you got. You know, I think the paintball store I went to back then, they sold one brand, and that was it, and that was that California Magnum paint. So anyways, you go from the evolution here, from the semi-automatic gun, and this is the first true semi-auto gun that I owned, single action. I had the double action Splatmaster Rapide before this one, but this kind of felt like, you know, a real, you know, I had this. I was the only one of my, you know, of my friends that had one, so I was the designated like heavy gunner, which meant I spent a lot more in paint than they did. You know, and you could lay down some fire with this thing. Gravity hopper, that was all we had back then, so you know, the rate of fire wasn't ridiculous, but for the time it was a lot. And you know, pretty much all my other friends had pump guns. There's nobody else that had a semi-auto at the time, and you know, you would bring this out on the field, people like, oh wow, he's got semi-auto. You know, just like today, you know, someone brings a Lux, it doesn't mean they're, you know, a great player by any means, and I got shot up plenty of times by pump players with this. I didn't own the field by any means, but anyway, these are this was a great gun, and this one is in really good condition. You can see compared to the other one, this one hasn't been really refinished or anything. The paint looks good. There's not a lot of scratches or dings. You can really read the serial numbers and stuff very well. It's you know, in pretty good shape. One thing I noticed was that this one, you know, and maybe just related to what I was talking about a minute ago, the threads there may not be so great. Because I'm having trouble getting tanks to seal on this, you know, now for some reason. So I'm going to look into that a little bit more and see if I can figure that out. But you can look from this to, this is a Model 98, not quite the Custom 98 that's out now, but almost identical in a lot of ways to a Custom 98. Internally, they're the same as far as I could see. But you went from this to the evolution to this, which is, you know, the de facto rental marker at pretty much any field you're going to go to. These are reliable, but you can tell the metal looks a lot different. This has got a smooth finish versus this rough cast finish. It's got, actually you could, I got this on this one to help adjust the velocity, puts more or less pressure on that spring there, so you can adjust the velocity a little bit easier. They did put in a screw to adjust the velocity inside the valve on these. I found, it works a little bit, but you get a lot more if you can adjust the spring tension or change out the spring. You know, put high pressure springs or low pressure springs in there, and that really is what you can do to adjust the pressure on these now. But you'll also notice that they rerouted the air to a bottom line ASA. So, and I believe these are standard screw holes, so you can put an on-off ASA on there if you want. This one still doesn't have a bleed hole, so it's a pain to get on and off. But you know, they put a foregrip on it. You don't have the pull-through cleaning that you had before, except if you tilt the this is dirty. If you tilt the feed neck to the side from the front sight post releases to allow you to get here, you could still pull a squeegee through that way, which is kind of nice. You know, not a lot of guns you could do that with, and actually even if the hopper was clamped on, you could still do it if you didn't, you know, if it wasn't going to, you know, empty all of your paint out of the hopper. Anyway, you know, the size of the gun, it's changed a little bit, you know, over the years, but essentially built on the same. It's got that big old Tippmann heavy, you know, hammer in the back here, just smacking that valve open every time. And you know, very similar to a lot of other pneumatic guns that are out there in its design. These did not have a safety. I see these have a safety on them. You know, but anyway, that's quite an evolution of and a number of years. I mean, you're looking at what, you know, well over 20 years of Tippmann work and design here in these three guns. So, but you can see where the evolution came from, and the bolt design is essentially the same. You know, operating principles are the same. You know, they got a lot of many years of life out of this design, more than I think many other paintball guns, except for maybe Spider, which operates very, very similarly in a lot of ways. So, that's Tippmann. And now I don't know what's going to happen. They were kind of incorporated into, was it GI Milsim or GI Sports? So they've been incorporated, not completely bought out. They retained their factory location in, where is it, in Indiana? Fort Wayne, Indiana. So they still have their location there, but GI is now going to sell all their stuff, or sell a lot of their stuff. And I don't know how much control they have over it, but it looks like already at Extravaganza this year they came out with some new models. And I like the direction they're going in. I mean, I definitely expect finally other than the TPX, a real magfed gun from Tippmann at some point. And who knows what they're going to do. But it's going to be interesting to see. But that's, Tippmann's been around. That family has been around and making paintball guns forever. We've seen everybody else kind of come and go, including even Wargame Products, which I thought was going to be around forever. No, but this is just, it's amazing to see. So there's, let's see, put them all side by side here as best we can under circumstances. I know this table's like filthy, but there's your multi-generational Tippmann view right there. So pretty interesting. And, still rock solid guns. Now, these were advanced for the time, and unfortunately, you don't think of Tippmann when you think necessarily of highly advanced paintball guns. Now, they tend to get a design and stick with it for a long time. But they are not dirt cheap. They are reliable and very rugged. So that's why you see this as the pretty much standard field rental gun. Very simple. I could teach somebody. It's like an AK-47. I mean, I could teach somebody how to operate, maintain this in about 5 minutes. And you can drop it. You can, water. Nothing's really gonna, hurt this. Whether you CO2 or air. I mean, it's simple. So, good rental marker. I keep this one around and I loan it out to people still sometimes. So here, want to play paintball, come out with us to one of our limited ammo games or something and use this. And, they work. I very seldom have to do anything to it. I think I went in to one of these, and I don't think it was this one, recently, and just redid where the airline attached to the valve, resealed it. And I mean, that was all I've ever really had to do to any of these. Other than clean them, a little drop of like a Gold Cup oil or really thin oil or something every once in a while, and that's it. Compared to other guns that you got to tear down and clean every time, like my tournament guns and stuff. After pretty much every time you play, or after like 2 cases of paint, there's really nothing to these. Are they the most accurate? And are they going to shoot a lot of paint? And are they going to keep up with guns like that? Probably not. But for someone to get out and, start having some fun and playing the game, yeah, why not? Anybody can get one of these. They're very affordable. So, and you can pick them up used for, like half the price. It's a general kind of retail rule. So anyway, that's Tippmann. That's what's going on with that. And we'll do one more shot of full auto pneumatic here. It's really cool. I want to see some of our friends and guys that play with us have the new Milsig full auto pneumatic gun. So I'm interested to see that. But other than that, that's it. What was I going to say? The Milsig gun. Oh, well, you got the MKP2, which is another gun you've seen in some of my videos, which has the E-grip that does full auto. The problem with that E-grip is that, it'll do full auto, but the first couple of trigger pulls, and I've had 3 or 4 trigger pulls on that thing sometimes, before the electronic part engages and it does full auto. So you've cleared almost half your mag before you get to full auto, depending, So anyway, it's okay, and I'm sure. I'm really interested in the Milsig one. The problem with pneumatic is there's no eyes. So, you know, RAP4's got the lock bolt and everything, and that's supposed to help. And I mean, look, we'll just have to see and give that one some time. But I'm really interested. The price point on that's great. If you're getting into magfed, that's one to look at, definitely. All right, guys, it's Brian from Reach Road Paintball. Please like us, subscribe if you want to see more videos. It's something we like to do. And, you know, if you're in the LA area, come out, hit up the meetup group, and come and play paintball. All right, thanks. Bye.